A wounded girl wakes up in the middle of cabin on a half-submerged yacht. When she regains consciousness, she immediately starts calling for Richard and unsuccessfully tries to get out. After calming down a bit, the girl removes her heavy equipment and makes her way to the deck through the hatch. There, she finds the safety rope to which the man had apparently been fastened. Upon seeing the broken carabiner, the poor woman begins to cry. Thus begins a film based on a true story called Adrift. You are on the Good Movie channel. Enjoy watching it. The action of the film is transferred to 5 months ago. At this point, our heroine is just arriving at the port of the island of Tahiti. The girl's name is Tami, and she worked as a cook on one of the cruise schooners. After the end of her contract, she didn't want to go back home and decided to stay on a resort island. Tami quickly got accustomed to the new place. She got a job as a daily worker at the pier, and in her free time, she spent time walking and surfing the waves. One day, while working on the pier, Tami gets acquainted with Richard, the captain of a small yacht who has just arrived in Tahiti. The young people immediately like each other, and when they met the next day, they agreed to have dinner together.
What's it like, sailing out there all alone?
Just you, the wind, and the sound of the boat cutting through the ocean.
During their conversation, it becomes clear that our characters have found a kindred spirit. They both share a love for travel and sailing, and the idea of a mundane, sedentary life holds no appeal for them. On their next date, the young people take a yacht out to sea. During this voyage, Tami demonstrates good skills in steering the ship. At this point, the film brings us back to the present, where the girl is drifting alone on a wrecked yacht in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. She grabs binoculars and peers into the horizon, hoping to find Richard. Then she reaches for a radio and sends a signal for help, but to no avail. Desperate and exhausted, Tami lies down on the deck and begins to cry. The film takes us back in time once again, to the moment when our characters start a romantic relationship. During this period, the young people spend all their time together. They travel extensively, and one could say they lead a joyful and carefree life. Waking up from a pleasant memory, Tami picks up her binoculars again, and this time she spots a dinghy on the horizon.
Oh my God! Richard!
Filled with hope, the girl tries to swim towards the lifeboat. Unfortunately, her yacht is badly damaged. The broken mast prevents her from turning a helm. Tami decides to cut the rope holding back the mast, causing the boat to lose its main sail. Having coped with the task, she fixes the hole with reinforced tape, pumps water out of the cabin, and sets a small mast on the bow. After these manipulations, the yacht becomes at least manageable. As ship approaches the dinghy, Tami straps on a rope and jumps into the water without a second thought. As girl gets closer, she finds Richard. The man is alive, but his injuries prevent him from swimming. With difficulty, Tami manages to drag her beloved to the yacht, and with the help of a rope, lifts him onto the deck.
It's gonna be okay. It's gonna be okay.
At this point, the film takes us back in time once again. This time, the young couple is shown in a restaurant, engaging in a pleasant conversation. Subsequently, they spend the evening on the dance floor. But unfortunately, the reality looks very different. Richard has suffered a serious leg fracture, and Tami, using improvised means, has applied a temporary splint to his leg. Additionally, the man is experiencing difficulty breathing, as he has a huge bruise on his side indicating broken ribs. In the next scene, we learn how our characters ended up on this boat. One day, while strolling through the market, they were discussing future plans and choosing the ideal place to travel. At that moment, they ran into Richard's acquaintances. The couple was in urgent need of someone to ferry their boat for a considerable reward, because they urgently needed to get away on business. The trip was long, but it perfectly matched the plans of our characters, so they agreed without hesitation. Moreover, the yacht was luxurious, and the earnings would sustain them for a year of easy living. After preparing their belongings, the young people set off.
So what do you think of that? Red sky at night.
Sailor's delight.
Meanwhile, our characters have been drifting in the ocean for 2 days. Upon calculating the coordinates, Tami discovers unpleasant news. They are far off course, making their search area 1,500 square miles. There are no air or shipping lanes in the vicinity, meaning they have no one to assist them. Realizing this, the girl falls into despair, but Richard consoles her and refuses to let her give up. Later, with the help of a rope, Tami calculates the speed and determines the direction of the current and the wind. The data reveals that under these conditions, their journey to their intended destination will take several months. Opening the map, the girls suggest changing their route and attempting to swim to the island of Hawaii. This would help them save approximately twice as much time on their journey.
It's like a 2,000 miles shot at a moving target.
Yeah, but the current and the wind would be behind us.
Despite the enormous risk, Tami decides to change their course. After setting a new direction, the girl finally tends to her own injuries. Standing in front of a broken mirror, she stitches up a terrible wound on her head. Then she gathers all supplies left in the cabin and brings them to Richard. Opening a jar of peanut butter, the young couple enjoys its flavor with great pleasure. On the 5th day, Tami checks the route and discovers that the ship is slightly off course. The girl believes that her miscalculations are to blame since she has never done anything like this before. In this tense situation, Richard manages to calm her down once again, and girl decides to inspect the steering mechanism. This requires her to dive underwater. Her intuition proves correct. A torn sail is entangled with the rudder blade. After several unsuccessful attempts and a lot of effort, she manages to free the mechanism. Throughout the journey, the girl takes care of Richard and tends to his wounds. On the 10th day, they run out of drinking water, with only a week's supply of canned food remaining. In such a situation, Richard suggests that Tami put aside her principles and use a harpoon to catch fish. Starving to death is much scarier than harming living creatures. However, the girl refuses. She is a staunch vegetarian and does not want to cause harm to the fish while they still have food left. One day, heavy rain starts pouring down from the sky. Tami quickly sets up various containers on the deck, allowing them to collect fresh water. For the first time in a long while, the duo is able to quench their thirst. On the 18th day of drifting, the girl accidentally discovers a stash of liquor in the cabin. This allows them to relax and momentarily forget about their dire situation.
'Cause falling in love just makes me blue.
I wish you'd never met me.
But I would have us to remember.
After another 11 days of drifting, Tami spots a large ship at night and begins firing flares, desperately trying to get attention. She waves her hands and yells, but all efforts turn out to be in vain. Similarly, the ship passes by their yacht and quickly disappears into the fog without leaving a trace. Shocked by what she sees, Tami becomes hysterical. However, she soon realizes that she was experiencing a hallucination. Richard, attempting to provide support, explains that in their current condition, hallucinations are common. The girl should not succumb to these hallucinations and instead focus on reality. After all, they are still alive solely because of her actions. As time passes, Richard's condition worsens. He spends most of his time sleeping, and when he wakes up, he can barely utter a few phrases. Despite everything, Tami continues to care for him and tries not to lose hope.
Is falling in love just makes me blue.
The film once again takes us back in time. In this scene, Richard confesses his love to Tami and proposes to her. The joyful girl happily accepts his proposal. However, their happiness is short-lived. The following day, a strong wind rises in the ocean. Using the radio, the couple learns of an impending storm. They attempt to change their course, but unfortunately, it's too late. The storm rapidly intensifies to an unimaginable magnitude, quickly overtaking their yacht. Despite taking all possible precautions, the boat is tossed by waves as if it were a mere toy, eventually capsizing. Prior to this, Richard had managed to send Tami to the cabin for safety, but he himself remained at the helm until the last moment, and because of that, he was thrown overboard. Upon regaining consciousness this time, Tami immediately bursts into tears and addresses Richard, uttering the phrase that she is finally ready to let him go. Then we are shown the truth of what really happened. It turns out that Richard wasn't in the lifeboat. In a critical situation, Tami's mind created the illusion of his presence, providing her with the strength to overcome seemingly insurmountable challenges. In the most difficult moments, it was as if she was seeking his guidance, consulting him to make the right decisions. Now, she finally realizes this and can come to terms with his passing. The girl continued her journey, having learned how to use a harpoon to catch fish and sustain herself with fresh food. On the 41st day of drifting, Tami's tranquility was abruptly interrupted by a pigeon that landed on the deck. Perplexed, she grabbed her binoculars and spotted the long-awaited shoreline on the horizon. Alone, she managed to reach Hawaii. Firing a flare once again, a passing ship finally noticed her and came to her rescue. Tami was provided with food and her boat was towed to shore. In the next scene, our heroine returns to the island of Tahiti. The first thing she does is visit Richard's boat, reminiscing about all the pleasant moments they had together while looking at the pictures. Richard Sharp tragically drowned during Hurricane Raymond at the age of 33. Tami Oldham spent 41 days alone in the open ocean. At the time, she was only 24 years old. In her biography, she acknowledges that she could only survive thanks to Richard, as his voice guided her all the way. Thank you for watching until the end. On this channel, you will always find retellings of good movies.